ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Lucky Dog Gen 6 Series Tuesday nights here at the Legacy configuration for Atlanta Motor Speedway, the traditional mile-and-a-half sister track to Texas that this place was before it got reconfigured there into the mini super speedway that it is now. Should have a fairly fun lineup for you this evening. Watching a lot of guys having some fun rides there during practice and qualifying. So let's go ahead. Let's take a second. We'll go through our running lineup here to start this race. Starting on pole, we have the 78 of Gary Slapinski. To his outside, we have the 44 of Jacob Edson. In third, we have the 429 of Paul Witt. And in fourth, we have the 9 of John Held. In fifth, we have the 56 of David Berry. And to his outside in sixth, the 57 of Jeff Gilmore. Starting seventh, we have the 777 of Michael Pegg, and in eighth, we have the 24 of Jason Adams. Starting in ninth, we have the 89 of Randolph Richard. 10th is the 50 of Todd Willis. Starting 11th is the 66 of Colton Manich, who does not appear to have reconnected, maybe having some computer issues. Starting to his outside in 12th, we have the 146 of Jason Cavaney. Started 13th, we have the 19 of Ben Gear. And to his outside in 14th, we have the 43 of Sandy Curtis. Starting in 15th, we have the 3, well, let me hit the right one, the 3 there of Kendall Craft. And in 16th, we have the 52 of Gary Whitmer Sr. Starting in 17th would be myself, but I was just out running some practice laps, trying not to get rusty, so I am up here in the booth tonight. Starting in 18th, we have the 33 of Gary Ragland. In 19th, we have the 111 of John Henderson. Starting in 20th, we have the 6 of BK Pierce. And in 21st, we have the 91 of Joel Guy. And then finally, we have the, find him here, 58 of Chris Hogue. Pretty full field for you this evening. Should have a good long race here in store. This pace car takes him there through turns 3 and 4. Pace car is off. Gary Slapinski leads him here into the Geico restart zone. Green flag is out. Fairly even start there from the 44 and the 78. Those two did have some space between them. They have already gapped there on the top side. Gary Slapinski making sure absolutely turn 2. You see that 429, he's wiggling around. It is loose, it is tight. I think as one of the drivers said during practice, this car is loose. Now the guy said, I don't know, man, it's tight. The third guy came in and said, whatever it is, don't stay that way long. So these guys are going to be fighting a very ill-handling car all night long. And it's going to be a massive test of skill as they go and complete that first lap. Gary Slapinski out in front, 0.2 of a second over Jacob Edson. Jacob, the kind of guy we usually see him running up towards the top side. He's been running down on the bottom here following Gary Slapinski. It is faster in the early running here to go ahead and run that bottom. And that's where you can see all 4 of our top 4 guys. They are all running that bottom. You see the 777 of Michael Pegg as they were running through 3 and 4. He was running about a half a lane up from 429 to Paul Witt. We'll see where he runs this time. See, he is running that middle groove. So that bottom lane has a lot of speed on the top lane. Might have a lot of speed later as the 777 thinks about diving 429 low, makes better of it. Decides just to keep it there. As they both look to the outside of the 9 of John Held. There's a lot of speed on the straightaways you can get from taking that high side, but at the same time, that bottom's got a lot of momentum. They're going through those corners, but it looks like they're both able to get clear of the 9. Maybe the 9 had a little bit of a bump, maybe he's backing up those corners. Take a look back, see the further 56 of David Berry inserted himself into this conversation. 6 cars so far breakaway, but it looks like the 24 of Jason Adams and the 50 of Todd Willis. Both of these guys racing side by side here for the 7th position. They're trying to get themselves up into this conversation. The more they race side by side, though, the more they're going to tear up those tires. I would say, particularly the guy on the top. Running the top of some tracks really can be a way to make up time, make up as 24 tags the wall just a little bit. There's really not an even wall up there. It really has a lot of points where it juts out and will just reach out and snag you. Like I was saying, that top lane at some track isn't the way to go. But at this track, as you see the 56 gets some connection issues there. At this track, though, the longer you run up top, for whatever reason, like this track just wears out right rears. Nobody's business. So that's something the 24 here is really going to have to consider as we take a look ahead. 44, Jacob Edson, he was up the track. 429 to Paul Witt got past him. 777 to Michael Pegg, thinking of taking it low, and he does, able to clear the 44 Jacob Edson. Jacob has moved up to the high side, and I'm going to guess he did that because he saw our leader do that going through turns 3 and 4 there. Looking like that 78 already thinking like maybe the bottom doesn't have the speed anymore. That 429 is coming pretty fast. He was running in 4th. He's now in that same position 44 was, 0.2 of a second back. So if I had to guess, it looks like Garrett Sapinski here just trying to take the line of whoever's trying to track him down. That's a pretty easy thing to do here in this Gen 6 car. I mean, it punches a big hole in the air, but the problem that these guys really have to deal with is the guys behind the wheel have to deal with that dirty air. In Atlanta, I mean, with the way this track just cheese grates tires the entire time, that's something all these guys are going to have to worry about from start to finish. Just realized I've been talking about a half a lap, and I might help if I had my push to talk button press. There we go. So you can see a lot of these guys, I mean, they've moved up to the top. 9 of John Held. He seems stuck down there on the bottom. So I say they've moved up to the top. You see the 429. He's committed to that bottom there, going through 3 and 4. He's got the 777 of Michael Pegg behind him, trying to do the same thing. We'll go ahead and we'll ride along with Paul real quick. Down there on the bottom, he's able to get pretty close there to the 78 of Gary Sapinski. They're going through the corner, but on corner exit, that speed that the top side has comes into play. And Gary Sapinski going to block that bottom. Paul not looking like he's very comfortable running that middle lane. And so the 78 of Gary Sapinski, he's watching that, trying to see where Paul is weak, trying to see where Paul is strong, see what he can do to mitigate the threat that 429 is. Like we were talking about, this car doesn't know if it's tight or if it's loose. It's a 777 of Michael Pegg has a huge moment there. Saw that car flick sideways. Keeps it going straight. 44 Jacob Edson, though, still right with him. That's something, another thing we were noticing in practice. The closer the guy behind you gets, the looser your car will become, especially when two people running the exact same line. So that's something that the 429 and the 78 have to bear in mind as they run up here. Gary Sapinski doesn't want to run in such a manner that the 429 is able to get to him, get to that rear bumper, get him loose, because that's going to force that 78 to really back out of the throttle. And that 429, we know enough about Paul Witt. We just need to see a mistake. The guy on Paul, and we'll be all over him. They are still side by side there further in the back. 50 and Todd Willis still racing side by side with the 24, Jason Adams. The 9 and the 56, John Held, David Berry. Both these guys running fairly hard here for the 7th position. But the way these guys are running, the 56 and the 9, they got nowhere to go with the momentum they're building, so they can't really capitalize on clearing each other. For a second 3, no, we are 3 wide, it's 2 wide, back to 9. John Held backed out of that. figure it is way too dangerous to be doing that single files the entire line out here. 56 of David Berry sets to work on the 50 of Todd Willis. It's looking like all these guys have speed. The 56 tags the grass there. It looks like he got a little loose, ended up in the grass. That'll slow him down. 9 of John Held going to work on the 50. It looks like all these guys are pretty fast. They just can't seem to get by the 24 of Jason Adams. I think if they could get by Jason, they'd be able to work their way up, start challenging, you know, the likes of Jacob Edson, Michael Pegg, but the 24 right there in the 5th position. Jason Adams just running his race, doing his thing. He's running just fast enough that the guys ahead of him aren't pulling away too terribly much, but at the same time, all the guys around him can't get by. He's down at the bottom, try and guard. 50 of Todd Willis. He's like, okay, well, I know how strong this outside is. I think I'll go this way. 9 of John Held making a hole up top. See if he can follow Todd through. So they see if they can get past that 24. 9 of John Held. He is side by side. 50 made it by. 56 looking to follow his way through. He's got a nice draft pull as they all shoot by the 24. So while we were having this conversation, we had to change further up. Paul Witt got caught by the 777 of Michael Pegg. Michael running that bottoms there. 3 wide, going to be going into turn 3. Jacob Edson was like, I am not going to play third fiddle to you guys. See how fast that top line could be. Paul Witt drove it in hard there on that top side, was able to hold on to that second position. But all that's allowed that 78 to get over a half a second ahead of these guys. It's Paul Witt right up there against the wall, just rim ride. He's going to have to be careful. Like we mentioned before, this is not an even wall. I think what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to ride along with the 429 here for our first ride along of the evening. An idea of what this car looks like, sorry, what this track looks like from the perspective of second place. .429 running right up against that wall. I mean, while we were doing that ride along, you could see all the different places that top lane just wants to reach out and grab you as you go around this track. Saw Paul Witt. He was really thinking about trying that, you know, trying to go under Gary Sapinski there, going through turns 3 and 4. We saw how much he had to get out of the throttle to prevent from smacking that wall. Like, that car was absolutely plowing tight. But then you can hear him going through on the top side. You can hear how loose this car is, the way he's having to play with that throttle to keep this car pointed in the right direction. As it looks 22 laps in, like it has turned into sort of race where the top is the only place you can really go to make any kind of speed. 429 run out really of track to look for up there. If he runs any higher, he's smacking that wall. But speaking of walls, it looks like he has hit the air wall there behind that 78 car. He's been playing between 4/10 and 6/10 of a second, so we'll go ahead and we'll call it half a second. 5/10 there back from the 78. He cuts it down to 3/10 there. Not certain how he did that. 429, I believe we saw, just tagged the wall, just scraped it. He did, going in the wrong direction. It was almost 2/10 behind Gary Sapinski. He dropped back 4/10, almost lost everything he gained. See, the closer he gets to Gary, the tighter that car is going to get. He really needs to be on his toes about that, but it looks like this essentially, as he tags the wall there again in turn 3, this is turned into a one-lane track. If you want to make time early, you run the bottom. You want to make time in the long run, you run the top. And that is exactly what's happened. If you look back at 777 and the 44, these guys aren't going anywhere. These guys have been running like this for several laps. I mean, they caught the 429, tried to pass him. Paul Witt was able to pull it right back out. So Jacob and Michael here just trying to do what they can do to mitigate their losses. Just trying to hold on. Paul Witt, see him move it. He moved down to the bottom lane there in 3 and 4. Looks like turns 3 and 4 is where he's having his problem. Gary Sapinski seemed to have that figured out. Running the top both ends of the track. Let's take a look back to 9 and John Held. He's also running that high lane. He's not as committed to it. See, he's keeping more like the top of the middle lane as opposed to right there up against the wall. And that's not a bad call. I mean, it's not as fast, but it gives him plenty of track to be able to try and save this car if it gets too tight, if it gets too loose. It gives him just that little extra lane. See him right here through turns 1 and 2. He's up the track, arcs it down just a little bit there on corner exit to get as much of a run down the straightaway as he can. He's close enough to the 44 here. He's able to get a good pull. This 777 is able to catch back up too and is trying to pass the 429. Saw Paul Witt bounce off the wall a couple times. Michael Pegg sensing blood in the water. He's like, all right, well, let me go ahead and get around you. Paul Witt don't play that way. He's going to run as hard as he can, maintain that position. He knows how valuable track position is. And with Gary Sapinski a second ahead of these guys, track position is just going to mean more and more as this thing goes on. Because Gary, I would be willing to bet, is going to keep getting further and further away. So 44 follows the 429 right around the 777. Michael Pegg tried to take second, lost third. Sails it off here in turn 2. While they were doing all that, that allowed the 9 and John Held to catch right up to these guys. I mean, he was about a second back. He's now only about 3/10 off of the 777. We know this 9 is fast. Started up towards the front. See if I can get this. Yep, started 4th. He's running 5th currently. He fell all the way back to about the 8th position. Got himself back up here into the top 5. We know this 9 car likes to play that higher saving strategy. So that's exactly what he's doing. And with the way these guys are racing, that 9 is... Oh, as he bounces off the wall, saw him that evasive action there from the 777. Made an evasive action of his own, got him into the wall. I don't think that'll cause too much damage to the car. But I'd be willing to bet we're seeing this tire saving strategy from the 9 and John Held really start paying off. I mean, the only reason these guys are a second and a half off of Gary Sapinski is because they're racing side by side as hard as they are. As the 44, the 777, 44 gets in the wall twice down the backstretch. Then 777 pinched him real tight there to the wall. The exit of turn 2. Michael Pegg trying to not fall too far back, but he's running that bottom lane, that right front tire. It's losing a lot of grip. This 9 gets the looked like he got in the wall there on corner entry there into turn 1. He's struggling with that dirty air behind all these guys. I mean, the more guys you got racing side by side in front of you, the harder it is to make these turns. they head here through turns 3 and 4. It looks like the thing you got to do is you got to force the guy behind you to try and run low. You're able to make up time there, but the guy behind has got to be able to pounce on any time you decide you don't want to run the top. 9's in a little bit of a predicament. All that's got the 50, Todd Willis. John thought he'd lost Todd. Not quite the case. Todd Willis still right there with him. Now, the only thing that all these guys here really have to really think about is the fact that, you know, given the fact that these guys are running that high side, with the exception of the 777 of Michael Pegg here, if any of these guys move down to the bottom lane in turns 3 and 4, then everyone knows they're coming to pit. They're not really going to be able to fake out the guys behind them. And we know with how valuable pit stops here are, if you can get that extra lap where the other guy's on older stuff than you, it can make all the difference. We got 5 cars here under a blanket, all fighting essentially for that second position. John Held looking for any and all clean air he can find to work his way around that 777. It's just not there. Let's take a look here. The 78 of Gary Slapinski. Man, he is checked out. 2 seconds ahead of the field. This man, really nothing to worry about. The only person who can really ruin his race right now, I'd say, is him. Looking how long we're running, I think we either have enough fuel to make it halfway or we're just shy. Not entirely certain. Running that high lane, though, that is the longest way around the track, so it's not going to be the easiest thing to save fuel up there. We'll go ahead and we'll ride off the gearbox. You can get an idea how much distance he's put between himself and the other 5 cars there in the top 6. See, they're still running side by side. 44 is going for a pass on the 429, the 9 that John Held. He's trying to go around the outside. 777 of Michael Pegg. He's the big loser in all of this. So 44 was able to get by the 429. 9 looking to see if he can make it stick down there on the bottom. Just sends it through side by side with the 44. They don't make contact. It's very good. 429 of Paul Witt just going in the wrong direction. Be willing to bet that Paul here has just worn his stuff out, does not have the speed he had before. I'd be willing to bet you bouncing off the wall a couple times, you know, a couple 3 times, did nothing for the handling of that car as he falls to that 5th position behind Michael Pegg. The 50 of Todd Willis. Now he's seen all these guys as Paul hits the wall again. That car has no handling. That car is plowing tight. I guarantee you it's wrecking lips at the same time. The handling is just gone in that 429. It's the big winner in all of this. 44, Jacob Edson able to get back out to the 2nd position. Remember, he fallen back fairways. I believe he got loose. Really had to get out of the throttle. When that happened, I mean, it shot him way back in the field. The 9 of John Held getting himself up into the 3rd position from starting in 4th. These guys have done a fantastic job just taking care of their tires. That 9 is right there up on that 44. See him looking there on that high side. He's found some clean air. He's going to have a good run on Jacob. Coming down the backstretch, the 19 of Ben Gear comes off pit road. 4 tires and fuel there for the 19. 429 of Paul Witt has hit pit road himself. He's recognized he's losing a lot. The 9's able to make it past the 44. That 19 looking to work his way back past. See if he can track down that 78 and get his lap back. He's currently scored 2 laps now, so this will at least give him an opportunity to race there for that lucky dog. The 56 of David Berry. He came down pit road 6 laps ago for fresh tires and fuel. David Berry going for those even thirds strategy. We'll see how that pays off. They are currently catching 78 at a good clip. 78 is 3 seconds ahead of the 9. So 24 comes off pit road. So that'll put Jason Adams a lap down. 4:29 of Paul Witt. He came off pit road going through turns 1 and 2 here. Full clip, so he's going to be working to track these guys down. He's about a third of a lap behind our leader. So 19 of Ben Gear was able to get by Gary Sapinski. 56. David Berry shoots by, puts himself back on the lead lap. Gary continues to run that outside lane. Seems to be working for him so far. He's got 3.5 seconds on the 9. Now the 9's had to deal with all of this traffic coming off of pit road, so a lot of dirty air, and he's had to fight his way through. That has not helped him at all. Currently sitting about, he managed to pull it back here. He's 3 seconds now behind our leader. Those guys behind him still fighting pretty hard for position. That 44 Jacob Edson, he got just dropped back. 50 of Todd Willis. Todd showing his speed yet again up here inside that top 3. The 44, the 777, really got nothing to answer. The 50 as of right now is a 4:29 of Paul Witt, just rifles by all of them there on that turn 1 entry. That's the difference fresh tires are going to make. And the longer this goes, I mean, Paul is making up a lot of time on our leader, Gary Sapinski. So we see the 6. He's hit pit road. So the back half of the field, they've been down pit road, gone and away. Gary Sapinski here, lap 46, still out. That 4:29 though, he was a third of a track back. Now he's about maybe 2 seconds back. That is a massive amount of time that he's gained. Now this is the question. This is what Paul Witt is finding out. So it's looking like Gary Sapinski thinks he can make it the entire way on one stop. That's definitely what it appears. Paul Witt, though, is going for that even thirds, 33.66. That's the idea behind what Paul Witt is doing, is he just flies past the 78. Now, this is the question. This is what everyone's going to have to answer. We're not going to know which is the right call until the very end of this race. There is a 3-second difference right now between Gary Sapinski's fastest lap and his last lap. Gary's fastest lap was a 30.4. His last lap, we'll just look at it this time by, was a 33.0. So actually more like 2.5 seconds. Previous lap was more like a 33.2. But anyway, 2.5 to 3 seconds is what he's losing in time per lap to that 4:29. Is it the better call to keep it out here for as long as he can? Is Paul Witt, over the course of this, Gary Sapinski's very long run, is he going to be able to make up the fact he's got to stop, one more time? And he's going to have to pit right in the middle of not even in the middle of Gary Sapinski's run. Paul Witt going to having to be come down pit road somewhere between lap 60 and 70. There's only going to be about 10 to 20 laps on the 78's tires. Now 4:29's made up one heck of a gap here. He's going into turn 1 as the 78's crossing the start-finish line. That's only in a couple laps he's building this, and it's just going to keep getting bigger until the 78 decides to bring it down pit road. Now we're going to keep an eye out here on that 78. We just hit lap 50, so the end of this at the end of this lap will be halfway. The 78's able to take halfway on this tank of fuel, then it lets everyone behind him know they can do it as well. 50 of Todd Willis, he's hit pit road. I guess he did not quite have the amount of fuel to make it. 52 rifles by the 78 there, going through turn 4. as we just get that halfway mark. A bunch of people here, 51 laps on fuel. So these guys know they can make it halfway. Second place being the 40 of Jacob Edson. He's 7.2 seconds back. Gary Sapinski here down on the bottom. Like I said, if you've been running the top, you can't fake it once you bring it down to the bottom. Gary Sapinski coming down pit road. This should be his one and only stop for the night. 44 of Jacob Edson follows him down. 777 of Michael Pegg. He came down pit road earlier, so this is going to give the lead, I believe, the 89 of Randolph Richard. He's working his way here through turn 4. Does he think he can go an extra lap? Yes, he does. Going to go and get that lap led. The only other person still out on the track who hasn't come down pit road be the 111 of John Henderson. John here coming out of turn 2. It's probably going to come this time by. We'll go ahead and we'll check the 89 here. Randolph Richard down on the bottom, 56. David Berry shooting by. David Berry to the lead. We talked about him. He's back. 429 of Paul Witt running right there around the outside. Now, Paul here came down pit road 14 laps ago and has already dropped almost 2 full seconds of lap time. The only thing he's got going for him, David Berry here, is on 5-lap older tires, and David has dropped 2 full seconds. Just a little bit more than that 429 has. Now, Paul's going to be making speed. He's already seen what the 78 was doing. He's got to run that middle high lane. That's what he's got to do in order to get out there. But now that everyone else has come down pit road, now he's got to be thinking. That 9 of John Held. John here was last down pit road. Find him 6 laps ago. Michael Pegg 7 laps ago. These guys both running 30.0s. I mean, it looks like Michael Pegg last time by was a 30.8. John Held was a 30.9. So these guys running a second faster, a little bit more than a second faster than our leaders. 429 is taking the lead. He's going into turn 3. John Held. You can see him here. Make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Coming out of turn 2, 429 hitting the start-finish line. So yeah, he's 2 corners ahead of him. That's 78 of Gary Sapinski. Man, he was able to really mitigate that loss. He is currently sitting 12 seconds back from our leader. He is making time. Now, Paul Witt. He's in the lead. He's got to run about another 10 laps if he wants to cut this into even thirds here. He is pulling out full second ahead of David Berry, but he is losing time to this man, 777 of Michael Pegg. Michael Pegg here, his tires about 10 laps fresher. We know how much tires mean here. I mean, for a lot of this season, we haven't been banging on that tire drum, but Atlanta will be the track to bring that conversation back. Michael is 8.4 seconds back that previous lap. He is now 7.6. As it appears, he is absolutely hauling the mail, trying to catch up to those guys ahead of him. And that's what he needs to do, because this guy's coming. Gary Sapinski, 78. He's in the 4th position. He's running 0.2 faster than Michael Pegg. He's running a full second faster than Paul Witt. 1.2 seconds a lap is what he's making up on our leader. Paul, for the most part, out here by himself, got that 52 car ahead of him. I do believe that would be the 52 there of Gary Whitmer Sr. Gary here in danger of going a lap down. He's someone who doesn't like finishing a lap down, so he's not going to make it easy for Paul to get by him. He's moving up towards that top lane, trying to take that clean air away from the 429. So we watch what's going on. I think we'll go ahead, we'll take a second. We'll ride a couple laps with the man who so far has run, so he's led the most laps this evening. We'll go ahead and we'll ride a couple laps with Gary Sapinski. Enjoy the sounds of the cars. You see right there the difference, 4 laps this track makes. 78 caught 777 and rocketed by him. Put himself back up there in the 3rd position. As he works on tracking, as Gary Sapinski works on tracking down the 56 and the 429. Both of these guys, looks like 429's, he's hit pit road. He realized he cannot let Gary Sapinski make up any more time on him. Now, that was actually pretty good by Paul Witt. In that entire cycle, he went from about 8 seconds back to 6 seconds ahead. As he comes down pit road, takes 4 tires and fuel. The question is he going to beat the 56 off of pit road? 56 here, caught by the 78. If Paul Witt can get down and away and up to speed on that backstretch before these guys catch him, I don't think he will. He is just now coming off of pit road. These guys go by him right about, we should see him here, there. Paul Witt goes the lap down. He's right there with them, and he's got 33 laps to take advantage of these tires and make something happen. We already know this man is so fast in the long run. His last time by was a 31.7. So Paul Witt only going to have about a second a lap where he's faster than the 78 here, but is he going to be able to make that up? Can he transform that into a win? That's going to be difficult. We see him right there. He's back behind. Gary Sapinski was able to get around just about everyone else. He is absolutely flying as of right now. Currently scored in the 12th position. See what this lap is. This time by Gary Sapinski, 32-second lap. Paul Witt, 1.3 seconds faster, almost 1.4. Can he make up this time, or is he going to drive this car just that little bit harder than it wants to be driven? '78 of Gary Sapinski convincingly in the lead. I mean, he caught Michael Pegg. He passed Michael Pegg like Michael was standing still. I don't think, unless we have a caution, Michael really has anything for that 78. The 9 of John L. If you want to talk about people who are just really far away. I mean, he's 3.4 seconds back, 3.6 now on Gary Sapinski. He's catching the 777, but does he have anything for the 777? As we see the 146 of Jason Cavney. Jason here currently running in the 16th position, racing Sandy Curtis here. Trying to figure out, both these guys currently scored 2 laps down. They came down pit road, 16 to 18 laps ago, so they should be able, I believe, to make it to the end. Jason running that Kevin Harvick, Jimmy John's throwback car. I think we see Jason running a Kevin Harvick car just about every week. Gotta appreciate these paint schemes, like seeing folks recognize the greats of the sport. Of course, we can't talk about how that 43 running that John Andretti John Andretti Cheerios Petty Enterprises throwback. Of course, the 9 of John Held running the all-important Tide Ride as they catch the 777 of Michael Pegg. John's got the benefit. He's got his teammate Sandy Curtis behind him. Sandy may be 2 laps down, but if he can find that 9 and he can work with that 9, they're going to do their best to make speed. John Held gets down below Michael Pegg. He's not going to clear him here. You see the 43 going with him. Oh, he is able to clear Michael Pegg. Slots up behind him. Go ahead and kill any momentum run 777 may have. Now he's going to try and bring his teammate, 43, is Sandy Curtis, with him. He knows he's going to need some help. He's going to challenge those guys ahead of him. Gary Sapinski is checking out 3.7 seconds. And now these two are clear of the 777. Can they catch Gary? Oh, it's a 24 comes up the track. 24 of Jason Adams. Look like he has some major right front damage. Let's go back and let's see what happened to him. Loose. Looks like he just got loose coming out of turn 4. We'll go ahead and we'll ride along. Or just sort of, wrong word. We'll just go ahead and watch. Going through turn. Gets in the wall. Getting off the wall. Gets him loose. Jails the wall. Destroys that right front. Just not able to turn. He's trying to keep it down there out of the way, but it will not. Almost wipes out the 9, the 43, and the 777. 146, Jason Cavney able to avoid calamity. Brings it down pit road. He's going to get this thing fixed. Almost disastrous, but able to keep everything pointed in the right direction. That did slow down the 9 and the 43 a little bit. Got them separated for a second. They were able to get right back to it. 777 of Michael Pegg, he was able to keep everything pointed in the right direction despite that. That was rather terrifying. As we check in, this is probably our big story. 429 of Paul Witt, he's in 6th, 20 seconds back with 25 laps to go. Trying to catch up to these guys, see if he can turn that pit strategy here into a top 5 finish, maybe even a win. We'll see how that plays out. He's still about a second faster than our leader. So if he can maintain this pace, he should catch Gary Sapinski here with about, if my math is correct, should catch him with about 5 laps to go. And if he can catch him with 5 laps to go, he should be able to get by him. We will see. I don't think there's anyone better in this league at saving gas than that 78 is. Gary Sapinski just doing what he can to really, because he can see. I mean, we can see it. We know our racers can see it. He can see, just pops up the standings on the side of this, the side of his black boxes there. he can see exactly how much time people are making up on him. It's not a real-time reading like maybe the relative box is, which shows you, you know, like to the 10th of a second how close people are to you. But he can see he is pulling away from that 9. He can see he's pulling away from that 777, the 50, the 44. And the other thing he can see is he can see this 429 every single lap gets 1 second closer. And that's something that he needs to bear in mind, as we are 23 laps to the end. 23 laps to the end of this thing. Well, since we are strung out, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our through the field. I haven't done this in a while. These guys have been keeping everything pretty tight-knit for this season. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with the 78 of Gary Sapinski. Gary been putting on an absolute clinic, starting first, has led most of the laps, but showing that he's got a very dominant long-run car. Was able to make it halfway on 1 tank of fuel while running the top side, and that is an impressive thing to do here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. We know the top side being the long way around. Usually you lose 2 or 3 laps on your fuel mileage staying up there, but Gary Sapinski taking it to the midpoint, just putting on an absolute clinic so far. Duck back to the 9 of John Held. John here started 4th, currently running 2nd. I think that he might be, besides, I said Gary Sapinski's probably the best at saving tires in the league. John Held is rapidly becoming one of the best. It won't surprise me before too long. He's challenging Gary here on these long runs, right up there week after week. So he's currently going a little bit in the wrong direction here, but he has successfully nabbed and is really holding on to that 2nd position. Take a look back, 777 to Michael Pegg. I mean, he's got the 43 of Sandy Curtis all over his rear bumper, so he's got a nice push going down these straightaways, but that 43 not doing anything to really help the handling of that 777. Sandy Curtis going around, looking to go around Michael Pegg here, trying to help his teammate a little bit. Michael Pegg here started 7th, running 3rd. Michael doesn't seem to be doing as well on qualifying as maybe we're used to seeing, seeing him start up there on that front row most of last season, and both Gen 6 and the trucks. So something about, I guess, one of the updates iRacing has done is really not translated too well for Michael Pegg's qualifying efforts, but it hasn't done anything for his racing efforts. He talked to Michael Pegg most every week. He's finishing it inside the top 3. He's winning races, and that's more of what we're seeing tonight. I mean, he did not have the greatest qualifying effort, but here he is running in the 3rd position. No real threat out back. The only person who's really racing for position right now is the 9 of John Held, who's about a half second ahead of him. So we'll see how this shakes out going forward. So we pop back to the 4th position, the 50 of Todd Willis. Todd currently 7 seconds back from our leader. He's shown a lot of speed the last several weeks. I mean, we've talked to him, several interviews, a couple. We got a 2nd place finish. We've got a couple. We got a few 3rd place finishes. So Todd Willis really showing off his progress, his practice as a driver. Running here fairly comfortably inside the 4th position. I believe that the 44 of Jacob Edson behind him is doing his best to catch him. But both these guys run very similar lap times. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the finishing order that we get. Of course, with 15 laps left to go, we have plenty of time for a caution. But I think we all hope we don't get one as we go ahead and we duck back to the 44 of Jacob Edson. Jacob here in 5th. Jacob started 2nd, running 5th. Has not really had the greatest night. Kind of got ping-ponged around, shuffled back on a lot of that green flag racing. Remember, we had 5, 6, 7 people all running for 2nd place at one time. 44 was running right in the middle of all that. And that's not been the greatest time for him, but he's holding very convincingly onto that 5th spot. He's, like I said, he's not really getting closer to the 50 of Todd Willis, but he's not getting too much further away either. I mean, that last time by, he was a 10th faster. Make sure I'm looking at the right 2. Yep, he was a 10th faster. But the lap previous, the 50 was a tenth faster. So we'll see how that all shakes out. Popping back to the 6th position, we have the 429 of Paul Witt. Paul, probably the first person on that 2-stop strategy, running inside that 6th position. He started 3rd, didn't have the greatest first stint, really bounced off the wall several times. You can see the handling on that car go away very, very quickly. As he came down pit road right around lap 36, 40, somewhere in there. Came down pit road, 4 tires and fuel. He was able to get back out. He was able to take the lead there for a number of laps, but again, he had to come back down pit road that one more time. And that's where he is currently sitting in that 6th position, 15 seconds back from our leader. So he hasn't exactly plateaued, but he's not making those great strides that he was before. His last time by, he ran a 32.9. Last time by, our leader ran a 32.8. So Paul Witt definitely did a lot of hard driving very early on in this run, and that has translated, I believe, to his stuff. It gone. But managed to get here into that 6th position, 5 seconds behind Jacob Edson. So we'll see if he's able to get back up there, but I'm not entirely certain. May have used up too much of his stuff too early this evening. As we head back to our 7th place driver, we get the 6 of Brian Pierce. Brian here, our biggest mover of the race, started 20th, up here running inside the 7th position. And he's been 45 laps on this run. So I don't think he can make it to the end of this race. Currently on this tank of fuel. We'll see. But definitely been the most impressive drive from start to where we are currently in the race. Like I said, started 20th, currently running 7th. I mean, for a man whose stomach is bothering him, he's making some pretty good lap time out here. He's making his presence known. You can none of these guys can say they haven't seen him this evening as we just get our 10 to go. We'll go ahead and we'll cut to our last driver here on the lead lap. It'll be the 56 of David Berry, just a little bit further behind. David here, been 23 laps. He came down pit road, so he's that other guy who's on that 2-stop strategy. He's running about similar lap times to our leader, so I think where he is about where he's going to finish. It's about a half a straightaway ahead of Gary Sapinski, so I think overall his race should be pretty safe. He's been pretty quiet most of the evening. Started 5th, running 8th, so he hasn't had the drive forward through the field like maybe he was hoping for, but very strong showing here from the 56 in that Hot Wheels car. You know, I remember Kyle Petty when I was a kid. He ran the Hot Wheels number 44 for a not insignificant amount of time there. I believe that was what he ran primarily in the 90s. It's nice seeing this kind of paint scheme. I don't believe it's a Kyle Petty throwback, but I see that and I think Kyle Petty. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to call that a Kyle Petty car, and hopefully David doesn't get mad at me. We saw the 6 have a little bit of a moment there, brought the 56 right up to him. So David going to be seeing if he can go around Brian Pierce here, take that 7th position. I said, not certain how many more laps that 6 has fuel-wise, but he should only have to come down, take a quick splash, and get off. He probably won't lose too many spots doing it, but we will see. So we'll go ahead and we'll head back to our leader. Gary Sapinski, 7 seconds out ahead. Heard him say that he was not good at some tracks before and absolutely dominated. Hopefully he doesn't tell us he's no good at Atlanta, because this man started first, led most of the laps this evening, absolutely ran away with it. 7 seconds he's got on 2nd place for our last ride-along. We're going to go ahead and we're going to ride along with Gary Sapinski here for a couple laps, coming to the finish. just hear how long he is rolling that corner. These cars just out of grip. So Gary Sapinski's found what little is left in that car. You can tell that he is not pushing that thing through those corners any harder than he's going right now, and that car probably snaps around. And the great thing is he doesn't need to go any further. Go any harder. He's 8.7 seconds, 2 laps to go. Now 9.3 is my ticker update, so he is ahead of John Held. He is absolutely pulling away. John here, I mean, he's got a nice pull from his teammate Sandy Curtis, but it is not going to be enough here in 2 laps to catch Gary Sapinski. Gary would have to run out of fuel, he'd probably have to run out of fuel in the middle of the backstretch for that 9 to be able to catch him, but I don't think that's going to happen. He was able to take it over 50 laps on 1 tank of fuel. It's only been 49 since he came down pit road, probably has just enough gas to get to the end of this lap, clutch it around, and do that burnout. There is not much fuel left in that car. Gary Sapinski in dominating fashion, 10 seconds over second place. Commanding win, comes home first. Winner, Gary Sapinski. As things stand here, though, the 9 of John Held going to be coming home in second. The 777 of Michael Pegg brings it home third. The 50 of Todd Willis, he's got fifth. And the 44 of Jacob Edson will be your top 5. So we'll go ahead and we will gather up our top 3 for interviews. I want to congratulate all of our drivers for a fantastic race. 100 green flag laps. Don't think you could ask for much more. Alrighty, I feel fairly confident in saying this here. We have the usual suspects, starting with our 3rd place finisher, the 777 of Michael Pegg. Michael, is William in the booth? You got me?
Yes, sir.
Man, it looked like this car was a handful all night long. Managed to hold on to a 3rd place finish, starting 7th. Walk us through your race, man. That's not easy to do here, especially once it gets down to 1 lane.
No, you couldn't pass. You're side by side. You try to rail somebody on the low side. It was almost impossible. You know, you just have to follow each other. It was miserable. And then you try to go past somebody and you just right by side again. They'd just take off around you. Yeah, it was tough. Tight 1 minute, loose the next. Tight 1 minute, loose the next. Finally, the pit stop's what started spreading people out, but we were real tight till then.
Yeah, I think we had about 7 cars all there fighting for that 2nd position there for a while. Once you guys started hitting pit road, like you mentioned, really started spreading stuff out. We started seeing the 2-stop strategy, the 3-stop strategy. Notice you were one of the guys who decided to do it in 1 stop. What was the thought process behind that?
Just to wait till the time till I could pit so I could separate myself because some guy I think I was running 5th when I pitted, so I would rather do it on 1 stop than 2. We could get like 59, 60 laps on a tank of fuel. So I knew Henderson was going to run it dry pretty much. He was banking on caution. I'm glad we didn't have any 100% green. I'm glad.
I mean, for as difficult as this car was to drive, I mean, we were watching a lot of people really struggling there during practice to get 100 green flag laps at a hot, slick track like Old Atlanta, especially in a car that couldn't decide whether it wanted to be tight or loose. That's a phenomenal job. So, I mean, hats off to all of our drivers tonight.
Yeah, they did outstanding.
Well, Michael, congratulations on your 3rd place finish. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, I want to thank all the regulators, thank all the Lucky Dog members, all the Lucky people that watch, Lucky Dog fans, Lucky Dog broadcast, you, William, thank Brian for putting everything together, Gary for winning, all the guys coming out racing tonight. I want to thank God himself, Cash, Molly, Winston, Tracy. We're good to go.
All right. Well, thank you again, Michael. Again, congratulations on your finish, and hopefully we talk to you next time.
Thanks, sir.
So that brings us to the number 9 of John Held, finished in second. John, swim in the booth. You got me?
Hey, William, gotcha.
John, you are rapidly establishing yourself as one of our top drivers here, just about race in and race out. I know that you do, like you're the person who really gives Sandy Curtis a run for his money on Friday nights. You do a lot of making Gary Sapinski and Michael Pegg sweat on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Definitely solidifying yourself as one of the best tire savers here in the league. Started fourth, finished second, was pretty much inside the top 5 most of the night. Saw you drop back to about 8th, and then you were really able to work your way up, over the course of like the next 10 or so laps. I mean, with as difficult as it was to pass, how are you able to get yourself back up there inside the conversation after getting shuffled out?
Yeah, well, about 10 laps into it, yeah, you're right. I dropped back quite a bit, and I said to my guys on TeamSpeak there, I said, I'm going to be leading this thing by lap 40 because these guys are running hard. I got to lap 40, I was up to 5th, of course. Gary's ahead, or up to 2nd, and of course, Gary's ahead of me still, but pretty good run. Yeah, I saved tires the whole race, and it worked out in the end. One stopper and just sort of saved it. But Gary just had a little more than I did at the end. I kind of got caught up behind somebody when I was 4 to 5 seconds behind him. That just put me another 4 or 5 seconds because it was so hard to pass. Like Michael said, even slower cars, it's hard. You couldn't run up the corners or anything.
Yeah, I mean, we noticed. I mean, you were doing. I mean, I gotta go ahead and say, like Michael was saying, it's almost impossible to pass on the low side. But just about every time I watched you pass somebody, you were doing it low. How are you able to get the speed to be able to rifle something off into the corner to clear them there on the low side?
Probably mainly 3-4. I was back in my corner way, way up, and then you got about halfway in, then you just matted and it stuck, and I could drive down pretty good. And then I started doing that in 1 and 2 a little bit more, and it started working there a little bit too. So I really, really backed the corners up quite a ways and coasted it in there. And then when you could feel the front tire start to grab, that's when you mat it. And it seemed to work.
I'd say it worked, pretty well. I mean, you've managed to come home in second, probably the only person who ran more laps on that last green flag run than Gary Sapinski did. Unfortunately, just not enough to get you right up there with him. But second place from 4th. I mean, like I said, before this season, it was pretty much just Gary and Michael. Now, we get, like I mentioned when I introduced y'all, like we're getting a usual suspects list, and you are quickly establishing your name amongst these 3.
Yeah, well, thank you. Somebody's got to get up there and rub fenders with them. Gary's next on my list. Gary, you listening? We're coming for you.
Certainly, I know that he would welcome he welcomes the challenge.
For sure.
If you can get that man to start practicing, then I think the rest of us really need to up our game.
There we go.
Before too long, I think that's coming. Well, John, again, fantastic race. Congratulations on your second place finish. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Yep, as usual. Thank you for doing the broadcast, William, Lucky Dog, Michael, and Brian for everything they do, all the members, family, and just everybody out there. Hope they have a good life.
Well, again, thank you, John. Congratulations on your finish, and I really hope we get to talk to you next time.
Thanks, William. We'll talk to you.
And that leads us to our winner here at 78 of Gary Sapinski. Gary is women in the booth. You got me?
Yes, go ahead.
So is it safe to say you're a pretty good driver here, that you and Atlanta get along?
Yeah, pretty much. I like this old track.
I know some tracks you tell us, oh, I'm no good here, and then you qualify first, lead every lap, and win. I just want to make sure this wasn't another one of those.
No. I like this track. I always have, and New Atlanta, I do okay there, but it just always end up in a wreck there. So wreck always seems to find me. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I haven't run into too many people outside of the super speedway. Folks who run super speedway just about every day who really like New Atlanta, but this old worn out track. I mean, I'm kind of with Kevin Harvick. I'm sorry that this thing went by the wayside.
Yeah, I agree.
But so this track, I mean, old worn out surface. Everyone talking about how tight the car was, and then how loose the car was. Give it 10 yards and it'll change. What was your experience? Was it just bouncing back and forth between loose and tight all night, or were you able to find that happy medium that lets you really get the most out of the car?
Yeah, I just kind of felt the way the car. I mean, there's times I got really tight and I just kind of nibbled the wall, and I knew like next time around I was like, all right, I got to back off a little bit earlier because I wasn't using any brake. I was just letting off, like what John said. I was letting off way early and letting it roll, and then got back on it. And once I felt like the car had grip, and not to push the right front, kind of like just let it turn off the corner by itself. You know, I mean, it's kind of hard to explain, but you don't want to let the car turn. You kind of want it to turn for you, and that's kind of hard to do out there sometimes for a lot of guys. They want to turn off the right front, but you kind of want the car to do the job for you, especially this place because it was just it'll eat you alive, and there was a lot of people just wore out the right front, like just chomping it right off. I was listening to a couple of my teammates, and they were just down to like 12%, and I was like, I'm not even close to that.
Yeah, no, and I think that's where we see people like you and John Held. I think I mentioned on the broadcast. I mean, you're definitely the best at saving tires, I believe, in the league. John quickly establishing himself right up there with the ability to save his stuff for the end of a run. I guess at a track like Atlanta, we saw you start at the bottom because it looked like the bottom was where a lot of speed was. You moved up to the top the longer the race went on. Even with all that tire saving, is there's just no way to be able to run the bottom consistently here over the course of a long run?
I think you can. Yeah. I think you can. You got to drive it a little bit different. I just more comfortable that middle high lane. Could I run the bottom? Yeah, I think I could run the bottom. Yeah, I think I could. It's a little tricky coming off the corner sometimes. Kind of want to drive it almost straight off the corner and not too much wheel because it will snap on you. I noticed, so I try to that's why I was kind of running a little higher line, not to get rid of some of that snap off the corner.
It definitely looked like it all came together for you. I mean, you mentioned you really like this track, so it's no surprise that you were able to really find the that sweet spot for the car. Bring it home in first, qualified first, led most of the laps. Didn't really look like anyone out there had anything for you. It looked like you had everything you needed.
Yeah, I was messing with Mike. I said, "Hey, Mike." He goes, "What?" I said, "I'm driving at one arm and drinking a milkshake." I can't pronounce what he said next, so just use that 4-letter word.
All right, so it's not family friendly.
No.
Well, congratulations on your win, Gary. Absolutely dominating performance this evening. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
I want to thank you. You're doing an awesome job. I'm really excited you're doing this, and a lot of people are. I want to thank Lucky Dog, Brian, Michael, Billy, my family, everybody out there that's watching, and thank you for everything. Who else? And God above. Thank you.
Thank you again for taking the minute to talk with us, Gary. Again, phenomenal job. Congratulations on your win, and hopefully we get to talk to you next time.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And that should just about wrap us up for the evening. I mean, we have our Lucky Dog Wednesday series tomorrow night, same time, same channel, 8 p.m. Here on the Lucky Dog Sim Racing YouTube channel. On Thursday, when you'll hear from me again, we will have our Thursday truck series, so looking forward to that. Friday night, late model stocks, and Saturday night Xfinities. Again, all of those at 8 p.m. So we look forward to maybe seeing you there. But hopefully y'all had as much fun as I did this evening. And until next time, have a good one.